Well, hey folks, meteorologist Michael Wilhite here. It is Tuesday, April the 1st, 2025. We're talking about some severe weather again for this week. This is your second update here. Let's take a look at the national maps and talk about this for tomorrow, at least just briefly here. The Weather Service has continued the Storm Prediction Center here an enhanced risk over a very large swath of the area. There was some talks of it possibly going moderate. I still think that's a possibility that we may see an upgrade to a moderate risk, but you're probably going to see that closer to the event than what it is right now. There's still some uncertainties. Some of the data points to maybe some morning convection will be there, which might limit it a little bit. Some of the data doesn't have it. I think once some of that data resolves itself and we get a little bit closer, they'll feel a little bit more confident. But regardless, we're looking at a very large swath of severe weather over a lot of the area. Your tornado probabilities, here you go, 10% chance and hatched over really a large chunk of the area. I focus forecasting uh, right here over southwest Indiana and into western Kentucky, southern Illinois, and of course our coverage area here right there in the thick of that, shall we say. If you look at wind probabilities, we're also hatched in that as well. And then if you go back and you take a look at hail, we're also hatched in that as well. So essentially what that means when you're talking about this is that here in southwest Indiana, western Kentucky, southern Illinois, we have the potential for violent long track tornadoes tomorrow, greater than EF2. That's what that hatching that you see on the tornado probability map means. We have potential for winds 70 miles per hour or greater on those straight line winds. And then we've got, a couple of inches hail or more possible as well. That's what that hatching mark means there on the hail outlook. So, and just an ugly picture for us. And then it gets better, but it doesn't get better. It's kind of a catch-22. By the time you get into Thursday, there we are again in the area underneath of a slight risk for severe weather. On Friday, there we are again under a slight risk for severe weather, and yet again on Saturday. So we're talking about a multi-day event. Wednesday, by far, going to be the worst of these days for severe weather, but we have chances as we go all throughout it. Let's talk about why that is. What you're looking at here is the 500 millibar chart. So you're looking at winds several thousand feet up into the atmosphere here. And there are just a few things I want you to notice. First off, we have an upper level low pressure right here. All right, let me go change the coloring on that to something that you can see a little bit better. There we go. So we have an upper level low right here. And then, of course, you have the winds ejecting sort of like this over and across the area. So what you have, notice the orientation on this. The trough comes down like this, right? So you have a tilt of the trough like this. We call that a negatively tilted trough. What that essentially does is it allows more efficiently for this warm, moist Gulf moisture to be pumped right up into the area, and it just allows for a better severe weather event overall when you have a negatively tilted trough like this. That's exactly what we have. We didn't have that in some of our previous events, so that's one thing that's enhancing this over some of our previous things. And then just look at how powerful these winds are screaming up there. Plenty of wind shear with this. And here's the thing, this why I say it's going to be a multi-day severe weather event. As I put this in motion for you, typically what we would think, okay, here we are into Thursday, and we would expect that this cold front would move through in the severe weather threat. But what you've actually got going on down here is notice this ridge of high pressure. What it's doing is just sort of allowing this dip in the jet stream to just sort of flatten out right over top of us. And so it just hangs over top of us for days and days and days and doesn't really go anywhere. So let me go back in time, and what I want you to notice here is what we're going to have are these little impulses over time going on. So here we are. It's not what I wanted to do. So here we are on Wednesday. Notice, let me find something here that's a little easy for you. All right, let me get this in a different color again. Notice this little bump in the jet stream right there. It's just a little bit of wave. There's a little bit of a wave there. There's a little bit of a wave in there. So these little tiny waves that you see, those are called, sometimes you'll hear them called impulses, or you'll hear them called short waves. They're just a little bump, a little disturbance in the jet stream. What's going to happen is these little waves in the jet just keep riding over us, these little impulses. So as it flattens out, you have impulse after impulse riding over you, and that's going to mean wave after wave of storms just literally training over the area. And that's going to lead to a multi-day storm event. Again, Wednesday being the worst, but storms continuing on all the way through the weekend. Severe chances continuing on through the weekend, though not as strong, but the heavy rain from Wednesday night after this passes onward being the biggest threat. Let's talk it out with a little bit of the modeling. Let me show you two of the high-res models just to give you some ideas of how this might go. So here we are on Wednesday afternoon, 18Z, so that's 1 p.m. Central Time. And this is the HER model. So this is one of our short-term models. I'll show you the high-res NAM here in a minute. Let me just put this into motion, and you can kind of see that by the time you get here to, this is 7 o'clock Central Time, you've got a pretty nice line of storms lining up all the way down in here. Notice the storm movement, the individual storms are moving like that, but the line is moving east with time. It's not what I wanted to do. Let me put this into motion again. My mouse is not wanting to cooperate with me, folks. Bear with me just 1 second here. So I'll put this into motion here for you again, and you can kind of see how it rolls through. Now notice this is more of a line than what some of the other models are showing. So here's the high resolution NAM. Let me just put this into motion. Notice that it has more of a broken effect to it. And also notice that the timing on it is much later. So there's a timing discrepancy here as well. Whereas the HER brings this line, the HRRR model, high resolution rapid refresh, it brings this model, it brings this storms through anywhere from 4 to 8 p.m. into the area and then crosses. But as you look here on the high resolution NAM, what you see is, it's not until 9 o'clock and it's knocking here on our doorsteps. 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning. It's a much later time frame than some of the other models. So there's some discrepancies on time that have to be worked out here. As we get closer to this event tomorrow, we'll be able to fine-tune that a little bit more. The models are going to sort of battle it out here. But again, no matter how you cut it, we've got a nasty setup coming on. Storms are certainly there. And unfortunately, the severe weather parameters, well, they're certainly in place here for us as well. So let's just pick a point here as this storm is approaching here. Let's just pick a point close to the Ohio River here, just to kind of give you an idea of what might take place here. This is actually looking at the severe weather parameters, actually the numerical data behind it. If it ever wants to load, my internet's going a little bit slow here. Come on, you can do it. There we go. Should have had this pulled up. But notice what you see here on the probable hazard type. Let me just open this image in a new tab so I can make it bigger here. And the probable hazard type that it spits out here, PDS tornado watch. And if you look at the hodograph up here, that, if you understand what this means, we're talking about a pretty classic veering signature here for tornadic development. And then let me just zoom in on this. And if you look at the severe weather parameters down here, what you get here is just, equally concerning as well. Energy helicity index values of 3 and 4. And frankly, some of the data has actually been higher on this that I've seen too. It just depends on where you click on the map, but that's more than enough. Anytime you get over 2, that's enough for tornadic development. And by the time you get into 3 and 4, you are talking about the potential for some long-tracked tornadoes. I have seen some of the values in the data that I've clicked on as high as 5 and 6. That's in the violent category. So not good at all. We have plenty of CAPE, convective available potential energy here. more than enough fuel. That's your measure of instability. The EHI value takes instability and your storm relative helicity, which is spin in the atmosphere, and combines it into one nice little thing for us. But regardless, if you understand these numbers, you look at it and you can see, yeah, that's going to be a bad day. All the parameters there are in place. So does that mean that we're necessarily going to have it? Is it a guarantee? No, absolutely. Of course not. There are no guarantees at all in this. But the weather is going to do what it wants to do. But all that to say, all the parameters are in place for a bad day. And if we can get a look like this, where it's individual cells rather than, say, a particular line of storms lining up, then we could end up potentially having an even worse day, because with a line tends to come more of a damaging wind threat. With those individual cells all with a little bit of space in between them, you end up having more of a supercellular look, which leads more to a large tornado, long track tornado threat. So we'll have to see how that sets up. The modeling kind of differentiates, has some differences in it, shows a little bit of both. We'll have to see how it ends up playing out. But regardless, we're looking at what could be a pretty bad day. Now, as I said, we're looking at a multi-day event. Just look at all the flash flood watches that are already in place by the National Weather Service. This is an absolutely insane amount. And here's something that you don't see very often, too. This is the excessive rainfall look from the Weather Prediction Center. Here we are on day 2, which is tomorrow. And notice there you have a moderate risk for excessive rainfall. Go into day 3, there it is again. Day 4, there it is again. Day 5, there it is again. I can't remember the last time I have seen pretty much over the same area just that kind of a risk over and over and over again. It's because we're going to see, again, those little impulses are going to go right over the area. Rainstorm after rainstorm, just waves and waves and waves. And frankly, some of the data is just absolutely obscene. Here's what the GFS model is spitting out. And good Lord, I mean, these are obscene totals that you're seeing here. Yes, Owensboro, 15.5, 14.4 Evansville, 17.9 Paducah, a modest 6.4 up here around Columbus, 7.1 around Bloomington. You get the idea. This is ridiculous. Now, I never thought I would find myself rooting. I root for the euro a lot because it's usually more accurate, but never thought I would say I would root for the euro a little bit more, because it only brings around 6 inches of rain. Only. That's a pretty big discrepancy over what the GFS is showing. Everybody in the weather world is tending to side more with the GFS and some of the other models. The Euro is kind of downplaying it. I'll be honest, I hope the Euro is right. I'd rather have 6 inches than 10 or 15 inches. I've been forecasting around here for 13 years now. I have never seen widespread totals like this. An anomalous run, maybe, but not consistent back to back every run, especially as you get closer to it. This is going to be a multi-day rain event. There's going to be significant river flooding, significant flash flooding of creeks. You need to prepare for this one. It's going to be bad. So, if you live in a flood-prone area, just know that, you either need to get to some higher ground, or you need to prepare to be trapped in one location, particularly for a while, if you can't drive through those flooded waters, along with the potential for severe weather. Make sure you have your battery packs charged up on your cell phone. Make sure you've got flashlights prepared. There's probably going to be some power outages with this across the area. Some of it could be long-term, especially if you get these violent long-track tornadoes that could take out some of the infrastructure, power lines and such. That takes time to repair. So all that to say, don't panic, but now is the time to get ready for it. You have some time before this event. We're talking about this coming in late tomorrow night, so you've got time to get ready for this. And then, of course, once this comes through, then that front stalls out, and then, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you've got all of this rain coming your way. So if you've got things that you need to do outside, today would be your day to get them done. Maybe getting some lawn furniture put up or what stuff, trash cans pulled in, things kind of tied down, because it's going to get windy and rainy, and it's going to be nasty out there. All right, folks, again, multi-day severe weather event coming. The next update from the SPC comes here in a couple of hours. If they do decide to go to a moderate risk on this, I'll come back with a shorter update later this afternoon. I'm meteorologist Michael Wilhite. More to come.